hear me? Oh, good. Okay. If at any time you cannot, I do keep looking in the rearview mirrors, kind of wave. We shouldn't have any problems, but I just like to let you know. My name is Barb. I will be your guide today. It's a 1-hour tour. We're going to go on both sides of the Arboretum. We are asking just a couple of things. We ask that you please remain seated through the entire trip. Keep your hands, arms, legs, and children in at all times. If you have a scarf, a hat, or anything loose, please make sure you hang on to it. Unfortunately, I cannot back up in the tram. It just doesn't work that way. I keep driving forward. You'll have to remember where it fell out and go out and come back in your car and get it. We ask that if you have a cell phone, please feel free to take pictures. Take a lot of pictures. We like social media. Put us up there. Please refrain from talking on the phone. It's really disruptive to those around you. So we're going to take off. The Morton Arboretum is the brainchild of Mr. Joy Morton. Mr. Morton, they got off. Okay, sorry. Mr. Morton came to Illinois from Nebraska in 1910. He left behind his father and grandfather, who were also at their arboretum, which is Arbor House in Nebraska City. So he came here. He knew he wanted to have an arboretum. He was a railroad man. He was a banker. But he wanted to start buying land, and he did that so he could work on his arboretum. I'm going to stop for a second and tell you, every summer we have a different art project. If you look past the scarecrows, you're going to see the flight of geese. This is the last few days of our origami exhibit. Origami is the ancient art of folding paper. So Mr. Kevin Box is the artist. He's from New Mexico. We have 40 pieces of origami in 25 locations. Looking between the two bushes and the tree, there's a stump. Behind the stump is a peregrine falcon. To the left of the stump is a rock. On the rock is a mouse. And those are the two smallest pieces of origami that we have. We're going to come up to the highest piece, which is patterned after folding 1,000 cranes. Mr. Fox and his wife sat and actually folded them. What they did is after they folded all the cranes or whatever they were folding, they enlarged them, then made them in metal so we could leave them out all summer. So this is 24 feet high. It is actually 500 of the cranes. They're in 4 different sizes. They're sitting on a piece of polished granite. So if you were to look at the granite, you would see the other 500 reflected. He did actually make 1,000 cranes. He sold 500 of them, and then he put the others in the display. Now we're going to go back to Mr. Morton. Mr. Morton, like I say, came to Illinois from Nebraska. When he got here, in addition to being a railroad man and a banker, he decided he needed a little more to do, so he bought a salt distribution company. He renamed it the Morton Salt Company. So if you're wondering, yes, that is Mr. Morton. But in the meantime, he was busy doing lots of other things and creating the Arboretum. When he left it to the foundation, he asked that we do 3 things. He asked that we enhance the collections he had started. He asked that we continue to do research, and he asked that we do we educate. So we're doing all 3 of those, and we'll talk about them on our trip today. On the right side are the plants and trees of northern Illinois. No surprises. The only thing people are not familiar with is the fact that Illinois actually has native grapes, and you can see our little grapevine. In southern Illinois, Carbondale area, out west by Galena, lots of people growing grapes, having vineyards, and making wine. You can go on cute little wine tours, and I've been on some of those, and I've tasted their wine. I will guarantee you they make a wonderful balsamic vinegar. Now, if you're looking to the left, you're going to see that's a Midwest collection. So anything you can find in the Midwest, you see not terribly much color, but there is color. Especially the grasses, the native grasses, with the top parts of the grass getting that nice burnished color. So it's kind of nice to see a little bit of color. Unfortunately, with the weather we had this summer, really dry, and then those 5 days of 90, kind of played not a nice trick on our trees. So they're a little confused. They're not turning all the colors we would like to see, but they're okay. We didn't really lose any, but they did get a lot of stress. Now you notice we're going up a hill. Illinois is not known for hills. We do have 2 really nice hill areas here at the Arboretum. This one is called Frost Hill, and it provides the prettiest view. It is not the tallest, but it is the prettiest view. See, we have a little bench on the right, and what you're doing is you're overlooking Meadow Lake, which is just where we came from. You're facing west, so it gives you nice sunsets, but you get a nice panoramic view of some of our trees. We have 1,700 acres, and all of what you're seeing is part of the Arboretum. So you're going to get a little color this time of year. You're going to get some spring flowers in the early spring. So it's a really nice place to come and just sit. Now this is our conifer collection. Conifer means cone-bearing trees. So spruce, fir, pine, juniper, anything with a cone, mostly on your right. On the left, in addition to some of the conifers, we have a couple of magnolias. So we're going to get some nice early flowers, because you know the magnolia bloom very early in the spring. And then up here we also have 5 of our endangered species. It's the same species, but we have one of them up here. There is a worldwide red list of endangered species. These are trees that are endangered of going extinct. And there's 5 of these up here. Here on the left you can see it's a paper bark maple. It has that beautiful cinnamon colored bark. It's peeling. It's a wonderful tree. It is native to Japan. The sad fact is the only reason it is almost extinct is because it is harvested for the wood. There's no disease, there's no fungus, there's nothing. It's people. So the wood is beautiful, and it's used to make a lot of intricate woodworking pieces, and that's why it's endangered. So we have 5 of them. We have them, a lot of them, but we have 5 of them up here that we can show you. They're really nice trees. Our next collection is our rose family. I say family because we don't have any formal rose gardens. We do have some of the trees from the rose family. That includes apples, pears, peaches, strawberries, and raspberries. We are highlighting over 200 variety of crabapple trees. Most of them are on the right side. Look at the different sizes of these trees. They come in all different shapes and sizes. I mean, we have 20 feet trees. We have 4 feet trees. These 4 feet trees, those are fully grown. That's as big as they're going to get. It's part of their genetics. It's the way they grow. The left side, these were just planted in May, so they haven't had a chance to develop. But hopefully both sides will eventually have all of our crab apples. Now you notice some of them have the red balls on them. Those are actually crab apples. Crab apples are a real apple. They're about 2 inches in diameter, and they are so sour. They're sour enough that the animals here at the Arboretum will leave them on the trees till about November. I'm going to let all these people go by because they're kind of nasty. It's like me and Brussels sprouts. I'm going to eat that the last thing on my plate. But they're nice. Our early settlers did use them. They added sugar and made a crabapple jelly. Millennials, very smart, they figured out you can take those same crab apples, you can add a little sugar. If you let them ferment, they make a great hard cider. So always finding new uses for our plants and trees. The lake you see is one of our 8 man-made lakes. That is Crabapple Lake. We had to put that in when they added the tollway. Behind the berm, at the end of the lake, is I-88. So we have a partnership. What they are doing is they finance the trees that are up there, and we're experimenting. We're testing to see what's a good tree to put in an area that's right next to a tollway or a busy highway. So it's kind of a win-win situation. On the left, this is our marsh area. We have 4 marsh areas. Marsh just means it's a spongy bottom area. So with all the rain, it has a lot of water in it. Normally you can't see the water, but it's pretty soft and mushy in there. You wouldn't want to walk. It is also the highlight to come out here in the early spring, the end of February, beginning of March, because that is frog mating season. We have so many spring peepers and chorus frogs, and they make the most noise. You will never find them. They're about the size of your thumbnail, but you can come out and listen to them, so it's kind of fun. As you just saw fly by, a lot of birds use this area because of all the wildflowers and grasses out here. Now, when Mr. Morton was buying up land in the area, a lot of the land was farmland. So there's not a lot of old growth trees. We do have some, and we're very excited to have them. We're going to go by one on the right. It has a little plaque on it. It's a 200-year-old fir oak. We love this tree. It's a great old tree. Gnarly looking thing, but it does still produce lots of acorns, so it's a great tree. give you a little overview of what we're seeing. This next area is considered a woodland. That means between 50 and 80% of the ground is covered with trees. So this is a woodland. The next area is a savanna. A savanna means between 10 and 50% of the ground is covered with trees. A prairie means 0 to 10% is covered with trees, so that we do have a prairie area. A forest is 80 to 100% covered with trees. We don't have any forest on the Arboretum grounds. On the left is our buckeye collection. Buckeyes are the very first trees in the spring to get their flowers and their leaves. It's also the first to lose them in the fall. The buckeye is a wonderful little nut that comes off that tree. It is dark brown with a tan center. The Potawatomi Indians thought it looked like the eye of a male deer and gave it the name buckeye. It is also toxic for you and I, so it's not really a tree that we can use. The animals love it. They certainly do consume it, but we can't do anything with it. On the right side, way in the back, you can see some old growth trees. Those are horse chestnuts. We do produce chestnuts, and we can eat them. So this is our little nutty area, some for the people and some for the animals. Works out really well. We are lucky enough here at the Arboretum to be able to get a lot of research grant money, and we send our researchers all over the world collecting seeds and plants. We bring them back and start them in our greenhouses. When they get a little bit bigger, we bring them out to our tree nursery on the right. You see a lot of metal poles. That's our tree nursery. Right now there isn't anything in it. Well, there isn't anything in the front. A little further back, we have some trees I'm very excited about. We are creating 4 variety of Kentucky coffee trees that will not have seed pods. If you're familiar with the Kentucky coffee tree, beautiful tree, big, stately, great tree for a street tree because it holds up to the salt and everything, but nobody wants to break 100 seed pods a day off their lawn. But we're working on 4 variety of the Kentucky coffee tree that will have different shapes. Maybe some of them won't be as wide, but they will not have seed pods, which is very exciting, so we won't have to worry about that. Our next collection is our oak collection. You may notice that some of our oak trees have metal bands around them. That is called a dendrometer. It was put on in May. It is a 10-year research project. We are going to be measuring the growth of the trees on a weekly basis. We have researchers that come out every week. We're going to be able to then compare it to the climate, soil, what was going on the weather-wise, and it's a great research project for us to do with our oak trees. We love our oak trees. There are over 480 variety of oak trees in the world. We have over 200 variety up here. So we're very excited to have this great oak collection. On the left, you're going to notice 3 trees that are kind of hanging out together. We call them sister trees because they've been hanging out together for about 200 years. We love our old growth oaks because it takes an oak tree 20 to 25 years before it ever produces 1 acorn. Those trees can produce 1,600 acorns per tree. It's a lot of future trees and a lot of food for a lot of the animals here. So we love old growth trees. The state tree of Illinois is the white oak, and it's over here on our left. The white oak is unique because it will grow as wide as it is tall. This is also one of our memorial trees. At the Arboretum, you can purchase a brick, a bench, or a tree in memory of someone. We normally don't, we put a plaque on whatever you buy, or we put your name on it if it's a brick. We don't normally let people decorate the trees or anything, but that particular tree, the gentleman that bought it lost his son in Afghanistan, so he does put the flags out, usually for the major holidays. He should be taking them down soon. But, you know, Memorial Day, 4th of July, anything to honor soldiers is what he does. Now, this is our East Woods. We have 400 acres. If you look to the right, you're going to see we get a little bit of color because it's a little more open. It's a little less crowded. On the left, it's a little choked up. The East Woods is divided by this road. The right side is considered to be a managed woods. When our early settlers came, a lot of them brought with them seeds or plants from their native areas. When they got to Illinois, there were no natural enemies. So those seeds and plants became invasive species, which is what's on the left. They're taking over and invading. they have nothing that will stop their growth. The only way for us to stop their growth is to hand pull them out of the ground or do controlled burns. As you can imagine, we can't burn the place down. So we take little small pockets of areas that we do controlled burns in every spring. But we are so lucky that we have incredible volunteers that come out every spring and they hand pull those invasive species. Invasive species for us are buckthorn, honeysuckle, and garlic mustard. Now you can see on the right, this was our spring burn here. You can see how much more open the floor is. That gives our early spring flowers an opportunity to bloom. It was so pretty in here with the purples and the pinks and the whites because the area had been cleared of all the invasive species that they could pop right out. It's really lovely after we do a controlled burn. Controlled burns also help with ticks. It does eliminate the ticks. Of course, only on one side of the road, but it's something. As we come out of this area, we're still in the East Woods, but look at this lovely panoramic view. You're getting to see a little bit of color. Because all the trees near the edge of the open area have more access to sunlight, you're getting a little bit more color. You may notice we've cut the grasses on the right side, but not the left. We're holding off on the left because of the milkweed. The milkweed are here on the left. They are now starting to pop, so we can soon start to cut the grasses. We love milkweed. It's the lifeblood of the monarch butterfly. Monarch butterflies lay their eggs on the underside of the leaf. The larva will eat through the leaf. It will become a caterpillar, keep eating. It will then turn into a cocoon out, chrysalis, and become a butterfly. It will then start its journey, its winter journey down to Mexico. So we like our milkweed. Now this particular section of the East Woods, I like you to look right and left. You'll notice a lot of fallen trees, broken branches, trees that may have been hit by lightning or just kind of faded out. This is where I get to show you our Mother Nature recycling program. Unfortunately, we do not have the resources to come out and pick up broken branches, fallen trees. So our rule is if the tree falls or a branch falls, if it does not block the road or it does not block one of our hiking paths, we leave it. It will rot out from the center. It will become home to one of the thousands of animals that live here. In addition to the cute little squirrels and chipmunks and voles, we have raccoons and opossums and skunks that like to live in hollowed out logs. Eventually the log will deteriorate and then all the nutrients go right back into the ground. So it's a really nice life cycle. We enjoy the tree when it's a beautiful tree. It becomes home to the animals when it's dying. And then eventually it rots out and becomes part of the ground. Now on the right you'll see a little cleared area. This was our partnership with a couple of Boy Scouts last year. In order for a Boy Scout to become an Eagle Scout, he has to do a community service project. 3 boys approached us. We gave them this entire area. They are not allowed to use any power tools. They each have to come up with a work team, a plan, and they have to hand pull out all the invasive species, move all the broken branches to the center where we did do controlled burns. They had that cleaned out really nicely last summer. Of course it's growing back now, but we now have 3 boys with Eagle Scouts, so it's kind of nice to be able to work with the community and do things like that. This next area of the East Woods, these are mostly maple trees. And you may notice it's pretty crowded in here. Because it is so crowded, not enough sunlight reaches these leaves to turn them some of the pretty colors. What happens is as the sunlight is weaker, the chlorophyll starts to fade. The leaf is naturally yellow. The yellow is always there. The chlorophyll, as the sun fills out, the chlorophyll will come up, but then now the winter is coming, there's less and less chlorophyll, so we'll get more and more yellow. This is really pretty. If you look to the left and you look at the edge, you can see a lot of the yellow. This gets so beautiful when the sunlight is coming through the leaves as they turn yellow. Really stunning out here. You may also wonder about the configuration of what's going on. Maple trees are very interesting. When they are growing, they produce little seed pods, those little whirly bird things. Eventually they fall to the ground. Wherever they fall, they will start to grow. They don't care. And as you can see when you look to the right and left, yeah, it's kind of helter-skelter. And some of them look like really skinny little branches with, a little 2 or 3 leaves or something. That's just the maple tree in their normal growth. They're just moving along an inch a year, maybe 2 inches a year, until, like on the right side, a couple of trees start to fall over. When they suddenly get access to sunlight, they will start growing 3 feet a year. So it's really interesting to be able to come through here and watch the trees, especially in an area where a tree may have fallen recently, and you can watch it go suddenly 3 or 4 feet up when a week or two ago it was like, oh my gosh, it seems like it was just yesterday and it was just a little branch. And again, with a little more sunlight, we're getting a little more color out here. When Mr. Morton was creating the Arboretum, he was buying up a lot of farmland. Those farmers were moving into the cities. So he wanted to be a good neighbor. And he talked with the city founding fathers, and they found out there was a great need for lumber because they were having to import their lumber from up north, and that's very costly. So he worked with his arborists, and he said, is there anything I can do? And they said, oh, sure. You can grow spruce trees. So I'm going to have you look to the left. You're going to see a lot of tree trunks. Those are spruce. Mr. Morton was told, if you plant spruce trees very close together, the lower branches do not develop. They did not. They'll grow straight and tall. They did. When they get to be 100 feet tall, you can harvest them. They never got that tall. So he left them, and we're really happy he did. This is a wonderful area that we get to show off and tell people how fabulous the trees are for cleaning out the air. Especially on hot and muggy days, you can go into our spruce area, and it will be as much as 10 degrees cooler, and the humidity will be lower. So it's a beautiful area to experience the power of trees and cleaning out the air. Those are blue spruce, white spruce, and Norway spruce. So it's a really lovely area. If you're looking to the right, you can see sunlight's hitting. You're getting a little more color because of the angle of the sun is able to hit some of these trees, and you get a little more color. The next area is our Big Rock Visitor Station. Again, we have to go back millions of years to the old ice age. As the ice was coming from the north and spreading over Illinois, it was pushing into our area some things that are not naturally in Illinois. Illinois is made up of bedrock that is sandstone and limestone. What we have down the path here, now you can't see it from here, but I'll show you on the kiosk. An elephant weighs 7 tons. We have a 14-ton piece of granite rock. Granite, there's no granite in Illinois, so we know it was pushed here. And we know at 14 tons, no farmer put it in the back of his cart and moved it. So it came here from nature. But this is a great little path. You can park here. It's a half-mile walk. It's a great walk. I like to bring my grandsons because it is canopied, so it tends to hold moisture. We bring our tracking books and we look for animal tracks. It's great. Lots, always deer tracks, sometimes raccoons, foxes, sometimes we can see muskrat, whatever's in the area, we can see it from here. So it's kind of a fun way to come and see animal tracks, and then their big prize is to get to the rock. And for me, it's the fact that they walked a half mile to get there, so it's kind of a win-win for everybody. Now, outside of this wooded area, you're going to, especially on the left, you're going to see a lot of prairie grasses. That used to be farmers' fields. Farmers used to have lots of crops growing in this area. Right now, not a lot of color, but there's some color because it is open. You're going to get a little bit of the color. But the prairie grasses and flowers are giving us a little bit of color, just not red and gold, but they're color. Now over on the right side, as soon as we get out of this wooded area, we cut the grasses every year. We started noticing that we were picking up a lot of what farmers put down. It's called field tile or drain tile to keep their crops from drowning. And you can see, as soon as we removed the stuff on the right, we got a free lake. So it's kind of nice. Unfortunately, the trees that were around that area are drowning. But it's okay. They will go through that nice cycle. They'll eventually fall over and become part of the landscape. So it's kind of a nice little watching nature work. And again, in addition to all the wildflowers and the grasses, there's still milkweed out here. Great place if you're a photographer or a birder. Can usually see, if you park in 14 and walk along this path, see a lot of different birds, butterflies, sometimes hummingbirds. Looking left, some of the trees on the edge there have a little color. The tree standing alone is a sugar maple, and normally that's one of my prized trees. It's usually the beautiful, brilliant orange and red. Unfortunately, with the horrible weather we had, we're not getting as much nice color. I'm kind of sad, but it is a beautiful tree. Our next collection is our beech collection. It's here on the left. Beech trees have that nice smooth gray bark, and if you look at the one in the middle, the bottom almost looks like toes on an elephant's foot. Many varieties of beech trees. Now this one is normally green, and the leaves are getting that little orange yellow. The next tree is a copper, so it's always a little red. And then the third one that's almost empty is always almost a purple color. Now these do produce a nut. Not a nut you're ever going to find in a mixed nut bowl because it's very small and it's triangular. But it is edible. In our case, most of the times, the squirrels and the deer eat them long before we ever get to see them. Back in the 1930s, however, there was a couple of very enterprising young men. They were brothers. They decided that they were going to experiment with some of those nuts because they're so small. A lot of people didn't do much with them, but they thought they'd try. So they shelled them and they crushed them. They found it produced a very nice, tasty oil. They took that oil and they added it to their gum, and they made a fortune on beech nut gum. Those are our friends, the Wrigley brothers. Now, I have talked to a lot of people from Europe, and they say, oh, they still do that. The European beeches are usually a little bit larger, but they still do that, especially in Germany. They go into the Black Forest in the fall and they collect beech nuts. They love them. They bring them home and shell them. They chop them up and add them to their baking, or they do press them and they get the oil and use that to cook in. So it's really wonderful oil. So it's something, keep in the back of your mind. If you have spare time, you want to collect 1,000 nuts, go for it. Now, in this area, this used to be our hickory woods. Kind of sad. Although, if you look right, you're going to get a little more color on some of the trees that are in here. Most of these are maple. Used to be loaded with hickory. Our early settlers, pretty smart guys, I can't say guys, pretty smart people, have to be politically correct, they found out hickory is a very hard wood. That if they took that hickory and they made their axe handles, shovel handles, hammer handles, and plow handles out of hickory, it did not break as easily as some of the other woods. So they pretty much wiped out the hickory in this area. We have hickory all over the Arboretum. We just don't have a hickory woods anymore. This open area probably had a house on it because, again, the early settlers were pretty smart. They understood you want to be near the wooded area, but not necessarily in the woods in case a tree gets hit by lightning or falls over. You don't want to ruin your house. If you're looking to the left, this tree fell over about 4 years ago. It'll take another 10 years before it deteriorates, but you see it's not blocking a road or a path, so we just leave it, and it's doing just fine. We are lucky enough here at the Arboretum to have 80 variety of birds that live here full time. We also have another 200 variety of birds that migrate through. Migrating birds will often leave little deposits for us, little prizes. So sometimes, especially in this area, we'll see something growing, a tree, a bush, a tree, or a flower that we know we didn't plant. It was probably something one of the birds left when they were migrating through. They sometimes dropped off some little seeds for us. Now I'm going to go a little bit on the slow side. My last trip over on the right, we had a couple of deer. I'm not seeing them, but they were just out in the open out there just grazing. No, I don't see them. But they were mid-sized, so they're not new, but they were cute little, nope, I don't see any deer right now. But sometimes we'll get to see them. Now this is our Appalachian collection. Again, Mr. Morton did go on the Appalachian Trail and bring most of this back. Right next to the road on the right, these are pawpaw trees. And they're nice, lovely trees. Behind them is a fabulous tree for spring. It's dogwoods, and they bloom with those beautiful flowers. It's so nice in here. This next section, Central and Western Asia, I don't have a lot I can point out. It's just a nice variety of trees and things growing in this area. What we're coming up to is our oldest collection. This is our China collection. Mr. Morton did take a trip to China. Now, if you're familiar with China, you know it has vast areas of sand. It has frozen tundra, but it does have areas that have climate and soil similar to Illinois. So a lot of what you're seeing may be descendants of something Mr. Morton brought back with him. We also, again, are lucky enough to have research grants available to us. We have one staff member that has taken that opportunity and made 8 trips to China. And I asked him, I said, when you go, what do you do? He said, I take a shopping list. I go and I am looking for one specific thing when I go. On his last trip, he was looking for a tree, an ash tree that would be resistant to the emerald ash borer. He found several. So now in our greenhouses, we are growing those trees. Hopefully we'll be able to graft them with some of our native ash trees and come up with an ash tree that we can again have in our yards, because I like ash trees. On the right now, these are the oldest trees known to man. Not these particular trees, but this variety. This is the ginkgo. It has that beautiful fan-shaped leaf that will turn gold in another week or so, and it's just a beautiful tree. It is unfortunately also on the endangered list. So it is endangered because in its native China, the bark and the roots are harvested to make all the ginkgo biloba products you see in the drugstore. We know that tree is one of the oldest living trees because fossils of the ginkgo leaf, which are very distinctive, are found alongside of dinosaur bones. So it's a fabulous tree. We'd like to keep it. But again, we have to work hard to keep it because others are harvesting it for medicinal purposes. Now on the right, this is our fabulous elm collection. I know it looks like there's a lake there, but that's just a little overflow. It hopefully will disappear, but normally this is our elm collection. If you are from the Midwest, you know that almost every Midwest town has an elm street, because elm trees were the darlings of every Midwest town. Everybody had their streets lined with elm trees until the 1960s. In the 1960s, we got hit with Dutch elm disease. If you look over on the left, you see that tall, straight tree. The bottom 3 feet have one kind of bark and the top has another. That is one of the first experimental graftings that we did. Dr. George Weir was on our research staff at the time, and he grafted 2 different trees together to help to get the seeds to help us to create one of the 5 variety of elm trees that are now disease resistant. So they're all on display here in our elm collection. We're really excited to be able to do that kind of project and bring disease resistant trees, and we're hoping to do that with the ash tree. On the left, you can see one of our many picnic areas. We are open 365 days a year. Please come out anytime. You can walk, you can ride your bike, you can hike the trails. If you want to run, you can run on any of the roads that we have. We're always here. We love to have visitors. We also put on a lot of events. This time of year, this is October, every weekend in October, we have our arbor court filled with tents for things like taffy apples and pretzels and popcorn and bratwurst. And in the children's garden, they have painting of pumpkins, and we have that beautiful pumpkin display. It's a really nice place to come and just check it out. Last weekend, we had glass pumpkins on display. People were buying. It was a really popular event. This weekend, we are having the cider and ale fest. So you can buy, that's something you would have to pay for separately, but you can come out. I think you get 15 different samplings of different cider and ale. It's a really ale. It's a fun event. Now, also the parking lot is a great place because the trees are so nicely spaced. Look at the colors you get. Because they get enough sunlight, you get some absolutely gorgeous colors. It's a nice place to show off. You don't have to go too far. You just go to the parking lot. Now we're going to go down under the Route 53, and we're going to go over to the west side. The west side was the first of the property that Mr. Morton bought when he came out here to Lisle. Mr. Morton came here, he bought 600 acres. That was in 1910. He did not open the Arboretum till 1922, and he was not one to waste. So if you look over on the left, you're going to see a parking area. He actually raised pigs over there. He had a pig farm. And then we're coming up to the east branch of the DuPage River. He had crops planted on both sides of the river. He wasn't wasting. He wasn't wasting his time. He was thinking about the Arboretum and creating things, but he was still a practical man. Now on the right you can see, this is the way the river goes. It kind of meanders back and forth. On the left you can see Mr. Morton straightened it out. 90 years later we're figuring it out wasn't such a hot idea. So we spent the last 2.5 years, and we've probably got another 2 years to go, working with the Army Corps of Engineers to bring it back to a more natural area. We removed hundreds of trees, thousands of invasive species plants, and we're doing some reconstruction of the area. Now, as we go up here on the sidewalk on the left, you can see there's a really pretty tree with some color. It doesn't have as much color as it did, and we're losing the leaves, but that's a gum tree. We don't often get to see the gum tree in full color, and that's a really nice view of a gum tree, sometimes called a tupelo tree, but we're calling it a black gum tree. It's really a pretty one. Now you notice we're going back uphill. Mr. Morton, again, pretty smart guy. He was just like me. If I'm building a house, I want to be at the highest point. So that's what Mr. Morton did. He built his home at the top of this hill. This is overlooking the DuPage River Valley. It's a beautiful, what is that? Oh, that's just geese, I think. Oh yeah, those are just huge geese out there. Anyway, he planted this, so this right here on our left, this is more or less his backyard. His house is up on top of the hill. He planted this with flowering trees. Most of these are crabapple, but they do flower beautifully in the spring. When Mr. Morton came to Illinois, he was already 40 years old. He was not a young man. He really liked it here, and he wanted to stay. So he thought about it. He owns 600 acres. It's his land. He can do whatever he wants. So, of course, he built his own cemetery. So the Morton family cemetery is on our left. Mr. Morton and several of his relatives are in there. You are welcome to walk up to the gate. You can't really go in, but you can go in there. We always like to go by and wave and say hi. Thank you, Mr. Morton, because he really liked it here a lot. Now, when he was building his home, and he's building up at the top of the hill was covered with hawthorn trees. So he has 600 acres. It's an estate. He's going to name his home. He named it Thornhill. When he passed it on to us, he wanted us to have an education center. Unfortunately, his home was not ADA compliant. It did not have good plumbing or electric, so we had to tear it down. But we did build an education center. We kept the name Thornhill. So this is our Thornhill Education Center. In addition to classroom space, there is rental space, and you can, like rent it for weddings, parties, different things. And of course, the hundreds of classes that we have all year round. It's a great place. Now I'm going to have you take a quick look down the right. There's going to be a path. If you look at the end of the path, you're going to see a little log cabin. That's one of our outdoor play areas. We have in there, it's called our MUD, Mud Kitchen. One second.
Thank you.
We have pots and pans and dirt and acorns in there, and part of education is to go play in the mud. You notice up front there's another new building. We ran out of space in our education center, so we're having to build more. Please take a quick look to your left. That tree with three trunks, that's a hawthorn tree. It has beautiful flowers in the spring, but look at those nasty thorns hanging out of it. It's really not a fun tree. It's pretty thorny. Now I'm going to kind of scoot over. I'm going to have you look to the left. That would be where Mr. Morton's home was. And if you look straight down this sidewalk, you can see what it would have been where the entrance. On both sides of the sidewalk are gardens, and they're called four-season gardens because at every season there's usually something blooming in there. Okay, January and February there's nothing, but the rest of the time there's stuff. If you notice on the right, we ran out of room, so we had to build this permanent shelter. So every one of our day camps, summer camps, science camps, and school groups that come, they use that shelter. It's also used for other things that are going on. And again, you can see right next to it is another tent, a less permanent, because again, we keep running out of room. We have so many fabulous classes and so many things going on that we are always very busy. I'm going to let all these cars go by. Oh, well, our staff, either the staff or volunteers. Someone asked who carved all the pumpkins. Staff and volunteers. Um, we're busy here. We have a lot of a lot of people, a lot of things going on. We have um, in the evening sometimes we have pumpkin walks and twilight walks and stuff, and that's what that's for. All part of education. If you're interested in any of those, you can go on our website and check out the education link. Okay, I'm going to have you look to the left. Yes, that was Mr. Morton's chauffeur's house. So, now I'm going to have you look down the driveway. You see those little red flowers? That's the entrance to our fragrance garden. In 1984, we were approached by the garden clubs of Illinois, and they wanted a flowery area. Luckily, they gave us money to build one, so we did. And it is a beautiful space. It is so nice that sometimes we have 5 to 7 weddings on a weekend in there, so it's a real popular space. Anybody can go in. It's open all spring, summer, and fall, and they'll close it for the winter, but it's really a pretty space. We encourage you to go when there's not an event and just sit, bring a book, sit and relax. It's really pretty. Where you see that bench, behind that is something called Joy Path. Mr. Morton would walk from his home down to the river every day. That little piece of building you see, that is the one room of his home we were able to save. That was his library because it didn't need any big plumbing and electric, so we were able to save that. If you're interested, it is open to the public Monday through Friday. You can go in. It's got some memorabilia on the walls. You can get an idea because it's got the stained glass windows, the leaded windows. It's really a pretty area. Now, if you are driving around, the road splits here. And if you are a fan of prairies, I highly, highly recommend you go straight. From the tram, you can't see much, but let me tell you, we have a 100-acre natural prairie. That was the brainchild of one volunteer. He asked for space. We gave him an acre. He took some other volunteers. They went up and down the railroad tracks in like Riverside, Berwyn, Brookfield, and they pulled native prairie plants. They started that prairie. Okay, he did such a good job, we hired him. Then he did such a fabulous job, we named the prairie for him. That's the Schulenburg Prairie for Ray Schulenburg. It is now 100 acres large, and it is magnificent. From, again, the tram, you would have to go into the parking area, get out, and walk around. So I kind of skipped that, but please, if you're interested in prairies, go take a walk there. It's gorgeous, especially this time of year. Now, we're going parallel to Mr. Morton's Joy Path. This is what he would walk every day. And he would think about it and study it and be planning in his head for his arboretum. He did work with arborists like from the Arnold Arboretum out in Massachusetts and other arboretums, and he was always constantly talking. Now, he opened in 1922. In 1921, he hired a lot of people. They came out and they planted 138,000 trees, most of them along this area. So almost every collection we have started here. As we grew, we either moved them or expanded them. So almost everything we have kind of starts here. I'm going to have you take a quick look on the right down the path. That's a glade. It is called Daffodil Glade because Mr. Morton planted 20,000 daffodils there. Daffodils reseed on their own. It now starts over there and goes down both sides of this road. We now have over 200,000 daffodils that bloom in the spring. We also have bluebells and jonquils. This is a very colorful area early in the spring. This time of year we should have a little more color because we've got some nice old growth trees, but with the bad weather, or well, it wasn't bad, it's just not the best for color. So we're not getting as much color, but there is still some color and it's very pretty out here. We are going downhill. We are going into what was once called Round Meadow. It was called that because there was a beautiful round meadow down here. The Chippewa Indians would come here and camp every year for a couple of weeks. It's a beautiful valley surrounded by hills. And look on the left, you got a beautiful flaming tree, a little bit of color, so it's kind of nice. This was such a peaceful place. They loved it. Well, Mr. Morton on his walks looked this area over and studied it. He thought it'd be a great place for a lake. Now, the 1920s, there are no backhoes, there are no ditch diggers, and there are no excavators. Look at the size of this lake. It's a good thing he had a lot of money. He hired men with horses and donkeys. They took logs. They literally walked from side to side and back and forth and scraped this lake down. This lake is 12 feet deep. It's a lot of work by a lot of people. Now he took the DuPage River and he diverted some water from there to fill this and then brought it back. And then over the years, the rain keeps it fresh and keeps it moving. He wanted to honor his wife. Mr. Morton's wife was Margaret Morton. So he named this lake for her. This is Lake Marmo for Margaret Morton. It is also a very popular place for a lot of our education programs. So the best time to come to see this is anytime in the afternoon. During the week, we have a lot of school groups that come out. Weekends, we have education programs, scout groups, homeschool people. So it's a very popular area. But in the afternoon, it's pretty much all yours. Has a nice path around it, has some nice benches around. It's a very lovely place to walk. If you want a little more secluded of an area on the right, this is the parking area for Sterling Pond, another man-made lake named after Mr. Morton's son, Sterling Morton. Beautiful walk around there. Sometimes people ask what are our oldest trees. These two on the left, these are, we think, 300 years old. They're bur oaks. They're fabulous oak trees. They continue to produce acorns today. I mean, we can still get a lot of acorns out of them. The bur oak have the acorns that have that kind of hairy cap. It has a lot of little hairs coming out of it. So they're great trees. Now, if you look into the left, you see a little more sunlight, a little more color. And here we're going by the lake. This is why we bring a lot of the school groups here. You can see a lot of habitat. We have a lot of muskrats that live around here, so they get to show the kids the habitat. We also have a lot of turtles that live here. We actually have an island out there. We call it Turtle Island. Hundreds of turtles live out there. A lot of times, I don't see any today, on those branches that are hanging off, we see turtles sunning themselves. Turtles are cold-blooded. They need to sit out in the sun a couple hours a day. Excuse me, so sometimes we see a lot of them there. Keep looking left, you see that 200-year-old Freeman maple. It's getting some color, not as vibrant as we do some years, but look to the left. That little tree has a lot of color. That's a maple. But they do then reflect into the lake. It makes a very pretty walk. And as you can see, there's some people over there just sitting and hanging out. Great place to do that. There's benches all around. We encourage you to come and enjoy this. Sometimes, however, we are victims to Mother Nature. I think it was in July when we had a lot of those big storms, high winds. Unfortunately, those high winds took out a couple of our nice old-growth trees here on the left. But our arborists were very kind. They cut them out and made chairs. So please feel free to sit down and enjoy the lake on our old-growth trees. Keep looking left. You're going to see a little bench down there because there's a tiny little waterfall. You can kind of see a little bit of it bubbling there. A lot of good place to see turtles, fish, or birds. There's lots of little places that you can come and enjoy the Arboretum and see all kinds of nature or see no nature. Whatever you are looking for, you can just about find it here. We have all kinds of areas, and we encourage you to come out any time of the year to come out and enjoy the Arboretum. Now this meadow on the left is called Bobolink Meadow. In early spring, I'm talking the end of February, the beginning of March, as the grass starts to grow, bobolinks are ground nesting birds. They will come out here and start building their nest on the ground. We will not cut the grass in this area until August. So if you come out in April, May, June, you'll see tall grass. And if you watch carefully, you'll see birds flying up from the ground. Those are the bobolinks, because that's where they live. We also have a lot of bluebirds out here. It's because we kindly provide over 100 bluebird houses on our grounds. There's one of them over on the left. Bluebirds love to move in, and we have a group of volunteers called Bluebird Monitors. They come out every week and they check out each one of our bluebird houses. They check to see if anybody has moved in, if they've laid any eggs or anything. So it's a nice way for us to monitor the bluebirds, and they get a free house. Nice win-win. You can see on the left and you can smell it. We recently removed a lot of trees. What you're seeing are the types of trees that we removed. These were an experiment by Mr. Morton. These are red pine. Mr. Morton was trying to grow a crop of trees that he could use for paper pulp. Red pine is a fabulous tree. He had 200,000 of these trees. Red pine is also the state tree of Minnesota. It does not like our climate and it does not like our soil. So over the years they have kind of faded out and died. So we are removing them. We are replacing them with white pine, which is native to Illinois, and some of the other trees that you see up there are birch. So we're bringing our birch collection up and spreading our white pines out. Eventually all the red pine will be gone. It just doesn't do well here. And unfortunately we have to remove it. It's kind of sad when we have to do that. But it is nice that we are able to do it, you know, not all at once, a little at a time, and put in some of the white pines so they can fill it in and it doesn't look so devastating. Our next collection is our birch. You can see we've moved some of the birch up here. Birch, most of us know the peeling bark birch, and especially the white peeling bark birch, because we used to see it in our history books or our geography books. People canoeing down the river in a white bark birch canoe. They use the white bark birch because it is somewhat water resistant. Not totally, but it does help keep the water out. So it was a popular way to line the outside of your canoe to keep the water out. And most of the trees you're seeing, both on the right and the left, are all birch. We're really excited about the one on the corner, this nice round tree, because we helped develop it. It is called the Fox Valley Little River Birch. We are part of something called Chicagoland Grows, and we helped develop this tree. The unique thing about that birch tree is the shape. It will grow in that round shape. You do not have to do any pruning or anything. That's the way it grows. So it's kind of a nice tree for that area. Our next collection is our walnut collection, and unfortunately this year I'm not seeing as many walnuts. Usually when I drive by here we're cracking a lot of walnuts with the wheels of the tram, but I just haven't been hearing that, and I haven't been seeing a lot of remnants of the shells. So this might just be an off year for them. But we do have a lot of walnuts all over the place, all over the arboretum. Now here's where you get to see a little bit of color, because you can see the sunlight is hitting this little corner, this triangular area, a little bit of color here. When we get to the top of the bridge, I'm going to have you look left. When we started our river restoration project, this river was 1 foot wide. After we removed all the trees, we regraded, oh, there was a walnut. We regraded it and we widened it out. We planted some native grasses in here. Next year we will replant 800 native trees, so we'll bring it back to what it should be. Some of the turtles are coming back, some of the fish and birds, so we're starting to see some of the habitat coming back. Now on the right, this is the largest of our man-made lakes. This is Arbor Lake. It is actually a gift to us from the tollway. You can see the tollway up there. In order to raise the tollway, they had to dig down into here. So they left us with a 25-foot hole, which we filled. And this is now one of the cleanest lakes in all of Illinois. It's the cleanest because you can't go in there, you can't fish, you can't swim, you can't use it. So it's a natural lake, and it keeps the natural filtration and keeps it clean. Now if you keep looking to the right behind the fence, you're going to see some white boxes. We do raise bees. We have hundreds of beehives throughout the Arboretum. This is the easiest one for you to see. We do harvest the honey and we do sell it in the store. So we do work with nature. Now if you look over on the left, you're going to see a tributary. We have out by the prairie something called Willoway Springs. It's a natural spring, and it winds its way from the prairie and it joins the DuPage River here. And it's kind of a nice little addition. These are the two natural bodies of river in addition to those 8 man-made lakes that we have. Now as we come up, you're going to see what looks like a brand new bridge. It is new. It is new because it is replacing a small footbridge that was here for years. I mentioned that Mr. Morton would come out every night and he would walk down to the river. He did not walk back. He would walk across the bridge and his chauffeur would pick him up and take him home. So over the years, the bridge kind of deteriorated, so we rebuilt it. It's now a really pleasant walk, especially if we're very busy on the east side. Come over and park over here. It is a paved walk all the way up to the Thornhill Center. Lovely, lovely walk. Lots of different areas that are either growing with bushes or trees or open air. Really a nice area for a walk. The 2 trees on our right and our left, these are Miyabi maples. These were a gift to us from the Japanese government. They came to us as seeds. We put them in our greenhouses, and then we moved them out here. Um, they are fabulous street trees. They are actually planted up and down State Street in Chicago. In Chicago, they cut off the lower branches so you don't notice it, but they're really nice trees. These are test beds on our left. Some of them have trees, some of them have flowering bushes. They're in groups of 3. Each one of those 3 trees is the same tree, but they have a genetic difference. And that way we can test them 5, 7, 8 years, and then decide which is the best one for our area and introduce that into the nursery and landscaping communities. This is where I get to tell you that here at the Arboretum we have 1,700 acres. It is managed by 186 full-time people. That's not a lot of people. We do have 200 part-time and seasonal employees. But what keeps this place running every single day is the 1,300 volunteers, hundreds of which show up every single day. Every one of our trails is walked twice a day by volunteers. We have bicycle patrols. We have people that come and pull weeds. We have people that help with every one of our festivals. We have people that help in the library, in the visitor center, in the children's garden. So we are so lucky to have fabulous volunteers. I'm going to have you take a quick look on the right. This beautifully landscaped little area, the staff designed it, but all the work was done by volunteers. All the pumpkins you see in that area we actually grew here on our grounds. We do a lot of growing of a lot of the things that you see in our displays around the Arboretum. Now in Arbor Court, where we have thousands of pumpkins, those we did have to purchase. We just can't grow that many. But a lot of times you're looking, you'll see small displays, or especially like in front of the visitor center, almost everything there we grow in our greenhouses or somewhere on our area, and then we put them out for display. So we have a really wonderful staff that does grounds crew type staff, and we really appreciate them. They do such a wonderful job. Again, you get a nice view of some of the changing trees right here in the parking lot. You don't have to go very far. It's kind of nice to see the different colors and the different trees that we have. Most of our trees are labeled, so if you see one that you happen to like, go on up and check for the label if you might want to know what exactly it is or what's going on. Now, after we cross this road, we're going to be going on the right side will be Meadow Lake. That is the only one of our lakes that is completely surrounded by a paved sidewalk. So it is a great place for if you have a stroller, a walker, a wheelchair, you can walk all the way around the lake. It is 0.62, so just over a half mile. It is also right now where you're seeing our scarecrows. Scarecrows are our partnership with the Girl Scouts. Remember the Boy Scouts were out in the woods picking up leaves and pulling out things? Girl Scouts have it a little easier. They just make scarecrows. They come out every October. We have 38 Girl Scout troops in the area. Each one of them brings us a scarecrow. We put them all the way around the lake. We ask you, our visitor, to walk around the lake and pick your favorite and then vote on it. The troop that has the most votes wins a free class. So it's kind of a win-win situation. We get to enjoy the scarecrows, and they get to perhaps win a free class. So it's kind of a fun thing to do. Now, this back area here, this is also where we have our illumination walk. How many have been to illuminations? Anybody here? A couple. Oh, yay. I love illuminations. So most of these trees around this half of the lake are lit, either with white lights, colored lights, twinkling lights, sparkling lights. It's a wonderful walk. It's all paved. The total it comes out to be is 1 mile. So you walk part way around the lake, and then you walk up this little conifer trail up in the top, and then behind the children's garden. It is a fabulous way to see the Arboretum at night and in the winter. We don't get to do that very often, but it's so fun. It will open November 17th. That's why you see some people around. Some of our trees have actually, they started putting up the lights. It will run till January 1st. If you are a member, this is the time. If you can plan ahead, this is the time to buy your tickets. Tickets can be up to $20 each if you wait till were right the day you want it or something. If you're able to pick your date and buy your tickets now, they can be as low as $12 each. So if you can plan ahead, this is a great time to get your tickets for Illumination. If you look up on your left, see those conifer trees? I love that area because that's where they hang chandeliers. Real chandeliers like you find in your dining room, they hang them from those trees. It is part of Illumination. It is so cool. And again, on your left, this is our children's garden. It's 4 acres of fun. You can see we're starting to rehab it and do some additions to it. It's a great place. It is not limited to children. Anyone can go in there anytime. Please feel free to go in. Everything is child height, so it's easier for those of us who are short. We can see more. Well, sometimes things get really high up in the trees, so it's much easier. You see we have a little picnic area. Again, you don't need to be a child or have a child. Anybody can go in there. It's open till 4:30 every day. Please go and enjoy it. Look around, see it. This is the end of our tour. I do hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed. Please come back, see us often. We're here, like I say, every day of the year. It's great to see all of you. I hope you have a great time the rest of your day. And thank you again for visiting with us today.
It's a nice tour.